Hi, welcome. Today we're setting up an OpenWRT router as a wireless repeater, but this can also be set up as a bridge or an extender. And more specifically, we're making it an access point that we can connect to and then use it as a dedicated VPN hub. So today we're gonna set it up, standard OpenWRT repeater, and then the networking will all be tunneled through a WireGuard connection, specifically to Mullvad VPN. This can also be done through OpenVPN, though it's generally not recommended these days. But OpenVPN is available, and I'll link a guide below on how to do this with OpenVPN. It's just a slight tweak. Okay, so at this point, I assume you have flashed OpenWRT on your specific model, and you should go to figure out how to do that way before you get to reach this video. More specifically, you should just go figure out if your router is even compatible with OpenWRT, and that can be done through the table of hardware. But I assume if you're at this point, you've already gotten through all of this, and you're here at this point. So right now, what I'm starting with is an OpenWRT router that's essentially freshly formatted. Actually, it's very it just has a factory reset. It's on the latest version of OpenWRT, and now I'll go ahead and connect to it from the network. Sometimes on certain routers, after a factory reset or a flash, it will require you to physically go on there and press a button to enable wireless networking. And here we have what's up. All right, cool. No root password. First thing you should do always go ahead and set up a root password just to begin with. All right, the root password's been changed. It's kind of gone, but or the notification's gone, but it's. I promise I changed it. Next thing we're gonna do is go ahead and go to interfaces. We're gonna go change the LAN IP address. And there's a couple ways you can do this. You can remove, you can just make this 192.168, as the standard is this configuration of an IP address. And the reason we're doing this part is because you don't want this to conflict with your upstream router. So if your router that you typically connect to, that this one is repeating off of, is 192.168.1.1. That's the administration IP, and that's its IP. Then it will, they'll conflict, and you'll just lose your router basically in the network, and you have to do a reset or connect to it by other means. But the easiest way to do this is just to change the 192.168 2.1. Or who knows, maybe your router is already point 0.1, in which case you'll be fine. What I generally like to do is actually just use a whole other subnet altogether, just to make life a little easier, which requires to me to change the subnet mask here, and you just save this and move on with your life. All right, so something has gone wrong, as often happens in networking. What's good for us is, so you saw me click save and apply in that last step, to apply these network changes that we just made to the router, namely changing its IP address from 192 to 168.1.1 to this. But something happened, and this is a client side issue. This is just an issue with my computer here, um, where I guess it just my computer didn't register the router's new IP address in time, so I couldn't connect to this page in time. And what I mean by in time is, on the on the newer versions of OpenWRT, you have a sort of um, revert mechanism that you make a couple changes, you see the timer that you just saw on the screen, and if uh, nothing, if you don't reconnect back to Lucy, which is the web interface for OpenWRT, then it assumes that you screwed up with the network configurations that you just made, and it will revert them by the end of that timer. So I'm just gonna go connect back to the old IP address, and it'll work fine. And here we are back on the old IP address. You can see that up here. As you can see, it reverted our changes, and our changes are still listed here. And I'm gonna go ahead and save and apply. Now, uh, what you can do quickly is you can just forget the net. If you're connected on Wi-Fi, you can just forget the network and reconnect right away. If you're on Ethernet, it should happen instantaneously, but you can just connect and reconnect. But this will happen generally fast. So I'll go ahead and save, then reconnect the network. All right, so the network reconnected. I can go ahead and send this off, and we're in. See, now it says configuration applied because we reconnected to Lucy. I'll go ahead and connect in with a new password, and we'll move along. All right, so now we're at network wireless. There's a couple options you have here. Um, you can. This is a dual band router. First off, so this router has this radio and this radio. These are two separate radios. One is a 5 gigahertz band and one is a 2.4 gigahertz band. And what we can do essentially is um, we can keep things under one band if you have the one band only. What I like to do is, and you can, keep. I'm pretty sure you can do this actually. You can just, have one band to connect and also broadcast. Um, but I just for my convenience, or what I generally like to do, and it might not be a smart move really, is to delete the 5 gigahertz band and use that as my connection band to the access point, and then use this to broadcast. By the way, it might have just kicked you off the network at this point after you deleted one of the networks because, well, you have no access point network to connect to anymore. So it might have just kicked you off the 5 gigahertz band if you just did what I just did. And you might have to reconnect back to the network because only the 2.4 is up, for example. At this point, what I'll go ahead and do and is scan for Wi-Fi networks on the 5 gigahertz network on the 5 gigahertz band, and then the network I want is right here. We'll go ahead and enter in the password for our host network. Um, firewall zone should be WAN here, so we'll keep that as default. Couple things I like to play around with here is the channel. I like to set that to auto. And if you have some connectivity issues, you might have to change the width, especially if you live in a densely populated area. Like physically, if you're like live in an apartment building or something, you might have a lot of other access points competing for channels. So width, I can just bring down to 40, just for my taste, just for my experience in the past. And we can just go ahead and save and apply here. And it looks like we're already associating here with the network, so that's good. So go ahead, network interfaces. We don't have to wait for that, but just make sure you applied those settings. Edit here, firewall settings. Just make sure this is set to WAN. Save, um, and then hit save and apply. I don't know why this is in the documentation, but it is. Same thing. Go to firewall. Go to where are we going to? We're going to WAN. This WAN zone here. And then we're going to check that WAN and WAN are in the covered networks here. Save and apply, save and apply. All right, now things should be configured properly. I assume. We don't know that. You might have to do a reboot just to try that, but we'll go ahead and play around with something. So we're on a network here. We can actually just go to Google, for example, and just type in what's my IP. All right, so yeah, Google works and it does show me the IP address that I want. So right now, this OpenWRT router is properly configured as a repeater here. By the way, I just want to speak to something here. Uh, you might see a lot of guides online for Relay D using a package called Relay D. Um, you can do that, and it does make saving a couple steps faster here than you just saw. But generally, it's you're installing a new package, which is kind of worse for security, and also you need internet in the first place to install Relay D. And if you're just starting fresh, most of the time you're not going to have an internet connection to begin with. So, as you just saw from this setup that you just, or just this configuration I just went through, I didn't need an internet connection to start with, and they just paired it with an existing access point. So that's my little note here. Anyways, um, so we have our repeater set up here. It's showing my IP address. Um, Next, we can move on to the VPN setup. Hi, this is a clip that I just made in the future. If you see this right now, you should probably make a backup just to save the current configuration, um, just because this is a good last known good state, I guess. So go to System Backup Flash Firmware and generate an archive. Save that somewhere secure. And if you bork your setup way down the line and it's not looking good and you want to go back to a fresh, clean slate, you can just upload the archive here, and it'll hopefully get you back to those settings. So keep an archive save here at this point. Also, now would be a good time to optimize and name and also secure uh, your um, your access point network. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now for myself. All right, so back in Lucy here, we're going to update the list. By the way, system software is where I am. Update the list, wait for OPKG to finish up, and we'll do some installation. By the way, if you are an OpenWRT noob, feel free to go through these packages either here or in the link that I have below, which is the direct repository, and it has like a little cool table you can see and search in. A lot of interesting things you can use your OpenWRT router. Of course, it's limited to the hardware, as you can see, but a lot of these packages are well optimized for size, and you can, run a small Apache server, for instance, or an I2P connection off of one of these things, off a standard router. And this router wasn't expensive by any means. It was, I think, $30 at most, brand new. Anyways, we're gonna go ahead and install WireGuard. So we looked up WireGuard. There's a couple options here. We're gonna install the Lucy protocol WireGuard, which installs WireGuard and the necessary dependencies, so everything that we'll need right here. All right, it's installed, and if you have the overhead, go ahead and install the WireGuard status here. It's only 3.4 kilobytes. All right, so that's done. Very important at this step. I've made this mistake before, and it's specifically mentioned in the documentation. Reboot at this point. You must reboot your system. So go ahead and system reboot and send that thing off. All right, so an important step before you move on is to make sure that your system time is right. Oftentimes it's not. Actually, mine was wrong. I just updated it a couple seconds ago. It was like, I don't know, 8 minutes off, 7 minutes off. So sync it with the NTP server or sync it with your browser if your system time is correct. Um, but very important that your time is correct for the rest of this to go on. Anyways, let's launch an SSH session into this. All right, so we're SSH'd in. All you have to do is just run this one command, which I have in the description, and it will generate these two files in your /root directory. Make sure this happens in /root, which is where you'll be logged into if you logged in as root through SSH, because don't assume you have a user account at this point. Um, and with these, that's where you are is /root. So these two files, you can just go ahead and do a cat command on both ones, and it'll print out the contents of each file. I won't do that because I actually don't want you to see these, but keep the contents of those files somewhere so you can reference them because you do need them for the later steps here. Anyways, next we're gonna run the next set of commands, which is just a package update and to install curl. You can also just install curl from here, and actually, um, you can get used to the command line, or you can just do things manually here. Curl is in here, and you can just install that. Curl is in here, I promise. I just have to update this package list, which actually it's doing in here right now. So give it a quick second. All right, curl is done on the terminal here, and just to prove my point, it is in here. That command that we just run, refresh this, and also installed curl, so it does show up as installed here. Actually, we can also install something else here. We can do it from here, or we can just do it from the command line as well. I'm gonna install Nano, just because Vim or V or whatever is hell. So we're just gonna install Nano. It'll make life a lot easier. All right, so Nano is done. We can just clear that stuff out, and we're gonna use curl here to send a command. It'll be this command. Um, curl is an HTTP tool, and you can just send, HTTP requests, API calls, whatever, um, through it. And what we're doing is we're sending this command to Mullvad. We're going to replace this information here with our Mullvad account number, no spaces, of course, and then we're also going to replace this number here, or this value here, with the public key that we just got in that last step that I told you to save. Remember that? Um, anyways, so I'm going to populate these things, and it will return to me an IP address. It will also register this OpenWRT device as a device under Mullvad, so you'll see it in your device list, and it'll give it a WireGuard key and everything. But um, or it'll use your WireGuard key, but it will return to you an IP address that you'll also need for the next step. So we'll go ahead and proceed here. So at this point, after you run that command, Mullvad will have given you two IP addresses. The first one is an IPv4 address, and the second one is an IPv6 address. Uh, keep the note of those because you'll need those for later. All right, so after we have all those values, we're going to go ahead and add a new interface here on network interfaces. We're going to go ahead and name this, whatever, WireGuard interface. And protocol will be WireGuard VPN. Create that. So here's where you do some magic. The private key will be the one that you previously made in the console through SSH. And the IP addresses here are the ones that you got from Mullvad through the curl command that you did in SSH. You can add also the IPv6 address here too. So you just click the plus button after you add the IPv4. In the advanced tab, make sure that force link is on, then peers. Here is where you're going to populate it with the server of your choice from Mullvad. The public key is the public key of that server, so you'll get it from the link below or mullvad.net/servers. After you pick a server, just click on the details of it, pull out the public key from it. Um, Make sure root allowed IPs is on. Um, the endpoint host is the IP address of that server, the IPv4 address of that server that you want. The port you'll fill in as 51820, and allowed IPs will be this value that I have also in the description below. And then you should be good to go. All right, so at that point, save and apply those settings. Next, we'll go to network firewall, and then we'll create a new firewall zone here. Um, call it WireGuard Fire. I don't know. Input is going to be reject. Output's accept. Forward's also going to be reject. Masquerading is on. Whatever this is on. The covered network will be the interface that we created earlier, and then we'll save it. Go ahead and go to LAN. Change the allowed destination ports zones to only the thing we just made now, and then save and apply. At this point, what you want to do is go to DHCP and DNS, and on DNS forwarding, we're going to add Mullvad's one of Mullvad's DNS servers, or I guess their primary DNS server. You'll see later why I'm mentioning this. Save this here. Next, network interfaces. We're going to update LAN. And we're going to go ahead and change the DHCP server options a little bit. Go to DHCP options, sorry, advanced settings, DHCP options. Uh, Add these values in. Also, all this is in the description. and then save that. Save that. Actually, you didn't really have to save it at that point because there's one more change we have to make here, which is editing WAN. We're gonna give this a other DNS server. We're gonna disable that and use this DNS server. Save all that. Uh, and then at this point, we're gonna have to reboot the router. Mullvad says you also can might have to do a couple of reboots for this to work. You also should try doing some things client side, just because clients who were previously registered before we just made all these changes will have a lot of issues or might have some issues, especially in regards to DNS sticking on those clients. So it's recommended to do this completely fresh and with at least just only one client, just so that once you're prepared and you have all your other clients ready to connect to this network, you're not going to have this corrupting sort of thing going on. So like for example, if I reconnect after I reboot and it's not working on this computer, and I use another computer on this network that's never connected to the network before, and it works on that computer, then I know then that something was messed up on this client, and I had to troubleshoot here and verify that my settings worked on that other computer. Anyways, reboot time. All right, so Molbad says we're good. No DNS leaks, everything's good. Not gonna open this because it'll show some details, but we are on another IP address now. We're not on the IP address that we started with. Um, I did have an issue with DNS leaks, and that was fixed by restarting a couple times, validating my settings, and then ultimately coming in here, turning off this setting, and then adding this DNS server. Um, so that might fix things for you. You might also have to play around with some things. Feel free to also check the documentation that I have below, um, and specifically the Mullvad link, because that has some troubleshooting shooting steps on this stage of the process, as well as some troubleshooting steps for DNS leaks. But we're good here. We're good, thankfully. So we can move on to the next step, which is kind of optional. Hi, this is a clip that I just made in the future. If you see this right now, you should probably make a backup just to save the current configuration, um, just because this is a good last known good state, I guess. So go to System, Backup, Flash Firmware, and generate an archive. Save that somewhere secure. And if you bork your setup way down the line and it's not looking good and you want to go back to a fresh, clean slate, you can just upload the archive here, and it'll hopefully get you back to those settings. So keep an archive save here at this point. Here's a couple things. If you start using this connection to play games or stream or join video calls or whatever, and you notice that your ping is high or things stutter, even though your upload and download speeds are all right, um, on a lot of routers, especially older models, you might be dealing with something called buffer bloat, and I'll be making another video about this soon. But I have a couple links below about talking about buffer bloat, and you can just check buffer bloat pretty easily. You can run a speed test, or you can actually that's pretty the only way to do it. You can just run a speed test. So I'll show you how to do a quick buffer bloat speed test just to figure out if you're dealing with this sort of problem. So I like to use the DSL reports speed test, but actually it's been having a couple issues over the last couple like year or two. They lost most of their servers, and then uh, now it's kind of like, but it's a more comprehensive test. Uses WebSockets and stuff like that. But we're going to use the buffer bloat test by Waveform, which uses HTML. This one is actually a little more reliable, but it's not as comprehensive, and I guess it's good or accurate. but this is good enough. We can go ahead and do a test here, and we'll see how our results measure up. Just keep an eye out for these latency latency counts over here. Um, if you see double or especially triple digit movement, then you definitely suffer from buffer bloat, or your hardware suffers from buffer bloat, and it'll tell you. But just keep an eye out on these numbers and see how they move. I know for a fact this hardware does suffer from it, so you'll see what bad buffer bloat looks like, or what buffer bloat does look like. It usually does present on the upload side, so we'll see that in a second here. Okay, so upload is starting here and relatively safe here. Okay, so upload is working. You can see it's jumping up and down a lot. It was actually at the 140 range earlier, but um, you're actually looking for increases more than decreases. And actually, as a matter of fact, this is it's actually better than I usually get. So this is actually a decent buffer bloat result, but um, like I know in video games I've seen like 1,000 ping, and after doing the buffer bloat optimizations that I'll show you next in the next video, I've dropped that down like 20, and so with a bad configuration, and with a router that's under stress, maybe because it's a fresh install, this is happening, but we'll figure this out later, and I'll show you more as I get into this more. But yeah, keep an eye out for this, and you can research buffer bloat and check out the links in the description. If you're satisfied with this video, please give me a like. I would appreciate that. It also helps getting people to know it. If you have a problem, drop a comment. Tell me what's going on. Maybe I can help you out, or at least point you in the right direction, and subscribe if you feel extra generous. Thank you so much.